Equity law, it's our next source of law. I lump it together with the common law because it comes from the same place. The Old English law, it's judge-made law. It creates precedent, looking back at previous judges' decisions and so forth. However, the big difference is what the person gets at the end, the remedies. So I said under common law, money. Damages, proven damages or money. Equity is different, and that's what we're going to talk about in this section. So what must be proven to get equity relief? Well, let's start with the idea that these remedies are either preventative or prohibitive. The court can make someone do something or prevent them from doing something. The idea is money is not adequate enough. So the question, if we're dealing with an equity law or equitable relief, the test is whether an individual proves that they are about to suffer a harm, a serious, irreparable harm or wrong against them. There is no adequate money compensation that's available, that they are in such danger or peril or about to suffer something that's so serious, money isn't going to do it. Some of the examples we find this in, or some areas of law where we find the equitable relief, real estate transactions. You want to buy a piece of property, you enter into a contract with someone, and all of a sudden the seller wants to bail out. You could force that sale. The equitable relief would be the judge giving an order to the seller to sell it to you. Intellectual property uses, using somebody's copyright without their permission, is going to end up with the person who owns the copyright asking a court to make you stop using it. That's a form of equitable relief. We see it in environmental issues. So either stopping someone from doing something or stopping something that is going to stopping someone before they are about to do something. So let's say somebody's going to do some illegal dumping and it can be stopped in that moment before it's done. That can be a relief a court can give. Prohibitive, they've already done something, but we want to stop them from doing it. So that's what we're looking at here. So let's talk about some of these equitable law remedies. What can the court do if money damages is insufficient or inadequate? So these are the primary ones that we're going to see is restraining orders. We start generally with a temporary restraining order. This is where somebody who will, let's take the copyright example. I think we can all relate and understand that. Using somebody else's, let's say, photograph without their permission on a social media website for advertising purposes. And the person who owns the copyright or the photograph, the copyright in the photograph doesn't like that idea. They would run to court and get a temporary restraining order. It's a limited order commanding the party or you in a particular case to stop doing what you're doing until we have a hearing and I can determine whether or not some further relief is granted. The judge can determine whether some further relief is granted. You don't know about this as the person using the copyright because that person, the one that owns the copyright, ran to court and said, I need this stopped. So let me give the court's like, okay, you file your paperwork. We'll give you a temporary restraining order. Go give it to that other person and that person will have the temporary restraining order saying stop using it temporarily and come to court on a certain day. So everyone comes to court on the day that the court says to come, and then there's kind of a, let's call it a mini hearing, because the courts can't just issue an order based on somebody's word, right? We got to have witnesses and testimony and evidence. So what happens at this mini hearing is the court will hear the other person's side, the one who's using the copyright. And they will make a preliminary decision. They, meaning the judge, will make a preliminary decision whether to issue a preliminary injunction or a temporary injunction or not, or dismiss the case at that point. This is the type of order where the court, prior to any final determination of the merits of a case, restraining a party from going ahead with a course of conduct or compelling a party to continue a course of conduct until a case is decided. So this is kind of the in-between. Just so I'm clear here, the temporary restraining order is very limited. It's only like for a week. It's very short period of time because the person who wants to stop or prohibit conduct runs right to court and says, give me an order. Because some of these things are time sensitive. And the court will do it until they get an opportunity to hear from the other side. But not everyone can get all their witnesses and their paperwork and the evidence. Some of that takes time. So that's the point of the preliminary injunction. The judge wants to hear what do we have right now? And I'll order some sort of preliminary injunction. But at a final, and then we'll schedule it over for a final hearing and full-fledged trial. That's where other witnesses come in, any sort of legal paperwork, any sort of further evidence comes in. And at the end of a full-fledged trial, when everything is out in front of the court, then the court may order what's called a permanent injunction, which means that's the final order and the determination of the court. And whatever that is, stop using the copyright in the example I started with, that person can not use that copyright ever. The question is, does that permanent injunction apply to everyone? Nope. That's only going to apply to the person that the plaintiff has sued or has asked to stop using it. So let's say that was you were ordered to stop using that particular copyright, but in the next week I start using it. That person who owns the copyright has to start an entirely new case against me. They can't say, hey, I got this permanent injunction. It's not a forever, it's not an everybody collect all thing. It just relates to the person that they've sued, or it only applies to the person that was sued. So injunctions, you're going to hear a lot about those when we talk about other topics in this course. The other type of equitable relief that we'll visit in this court is called, in this class, is called specific performance. And this is where the court orders a party to perform a particular action. We see this, I gave you this example just a moment ago, real estate sales, forcing a sale to go through. This is requiring a person to perform who now has refused to perform, and they have a legal duty to perform, i.e. they've entered into a contract with another party. Part of that is for them to perform. If money isn't adequate, i.e. paying them their expenses or whatever money they've lost out of the deal, then the judge is going to order that person or party to perform the action. So that is equitable relief, kind of making things fair. And our next, so that ends our equity discussion. Next up, statutory. And don't you guys love my disclaimers at the end? You guys aren't the only ones who are watching this. Other people watch it too. So this is for educational purposes, not to be constructed as legal advice. If you need legal advice, not advice, consult an attorney about your circumstances. I'm pointing this out right now because we're actually going to talk about disclaimers specifically and what they mean. Do they actually work? And are they legally binding? So we're just throwing that out there for you to see, put it out there. So statutory law up next.